The night was dark and still over Malaysia. It was just after midnight on March 8, 2014. A Boeing 777, one of the world's most reliable aircraft, stood ready on the tarmac. Its engines rumbled with power. Inside, 227 passengers settled into their seats. Students, tourists, families, business travelers. They were beginning a journey to Beijing. The cabin lights were soft, the mood was calm. Many passengers were already asleep, dreaming of their destination. The 12 crew members moved through the cabin with efficiency, preparing the aircraft for its ascent into the night sky. The final checks were completed. The ground crew pulled away and the pilots received their clearance for takeoff. The plane, designated Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370, began its slow roll down the runway. It gathered speed with a deep, building roar. Then, with grace, it lifted from the earth. The lights of Kuala Lumpur, the capital of Malaysia, dwindled below, the city shimmering as it disappeared into the dark. The aircraft climbed steadily, a lone beacon moving through the vast night. On the flight deck, the instruments glowed with a reassuring green light. The flight path was routine. The weather was clear. Everything was exactly as it should be. The plane reached its cruising altitude of 35,000 feet. It soared over the Malaysian peninsula and headed out across the Gulf of Thailand. The autopilot was engaged. Good night, Malaysian 370. In air traffic control centers, the world becomes a map of blinking lights. Each light is a plane. Each plane is a life. And each life has a destination. Radar screens track every journey with cold, mechanical precision. The dot representing MH370 moved steadily along its planned route. Controllers watched it cross from their airspace into the next. The dot approached the edge of Malaysian radar coverage. It was expected to appear on Vietnamese screens moments later. The system worked this way thousands of times every night. A seamless dance of technology and human oversight. Then, the blinking stopped. The dot representing MH370 vanished from the screen. One moment it was there. The next moment, only the empty green grid of the map remained. The radar went quiet. The screen showed nothing. In the control room in Vietnam, they waited for the plane to check in. It never did. The silence stretched from seconds into minutes. Controllers in both countries began to ask questions. They tried contacting the flight, but there was no answer. The radio stayed silent. No distress call, no alarm. MH370 simply vanished from civilian radar. The plane hadn't fallen from the sky, not yet. Meanwhile, military radar using a different system picked up an unidentified object. It turned back across the peninsula, moving with a calm, deliberate precision. The flight path showed smooth, controlled turns. Nothing like a plane in distress. Whatever it was, it followed established aviation corridors as if guided by a steady hand. But it was dark. Its transponder, the signal that tells civilian radar who and where an aircraft is, had gone dark. It was a ghost, flying silently through the night. It traveled for hours, far beyond its intended destination. The world woke up to the news. A plane was missing. At first, the search was focused solely on the South China Sea, where the mystery appeared to lie. Search teams were sent to the last known position. They expected to find a crash site, but the sea was empty. The maps revealed a flight path that just ended. The line stretched out over open water, and then stopped. As new data from military radar and satellites emerged, the search area expanded. The flight path was redrawn as a long, haunting arc stretching thousands of miles into the Southern Ocean. The plane had not just vanished, it had flown on for hours into one of the most remote places on Earth. The first days of the search focused on the South China Sea. This was the logical place. It was where the plane last made contact. Ships from Malaysia, Vietnam, and China converged on the area. Aircraft flew grid patterns overhead, crews scanning the waves for wreckage. The world watched, hoping for a swift discovery. But the search crews found nothing. They discovered oil slicks. but none came from the plane. After weeks of surface searching, the hunt moved to the deep ocean floor. The black boxes, the flight data recorder, and the cockpit voice recorder were the ultimate prize. But their locator beacons had a battery life of about 30 days. The clock was ticking. Ships equipped with towed pinger locators patrolled the search area, listening for any faint fading signals from the depths. They detected a series of underwater pulses that seemed consistent with the black boxes. Hope surged through the international community. The pings eventually fell silent. The batteries had died. The search now entered a new, more painstaking phase. These unmanned submarines were programmed to scour the seafloor, meter by meter. Using side-scan sonar, they created detailed maps of the rugged underwater terrain. The area was a vast landscape of deep canyons and towering ridges. The robotic submarines worked for months, diving deep into the crushing blackness. They transmitted vast amounts of data, which experts meticulously examined, every shadow, every shape, searching for anything that might be aircraft debris. Many times, the sonar detected objects of interest. Each time, a remotely operated vehicle with cameras was sent down to investigate. Often they found nothing more than rock formations, sunken shipping containers, or the wreckage of old ships. After nearly 3 years of meticulous scanning, covering over 120,000 square kilometers of the seafloor, the official search was suspended. The ocean had not given up its secret. Years after the disappearance, pieces of debris began to wash ashore. A part of the wing, a flaperon, was discovered on Réunion Island, thousands of kilometers from the original search zone. Later, other confirmed or suspected fragments of the aircraft appeared along the coasts of Mozambique, Tanzania, and Mauritius. Ocean current models showed it was possible for debris to travel that far from the original search area. Each piece was a clue, confirming that the plane had met a catastrophic end and that the flight had terminated in the Indian Ocean. Yet the fragments were small, unable to reveal what had happened in the cockpit or explain why. In the absence of hard evidence, theories attempt to fill the void. One of the primary theories is a catastrophic mechanical failure. A modern aircraft like the Boeing 777 is incredibly complex. It has millions of parts. A failure in a critical system could have led to disaster. For instance, an onboard fire might have broken out, filling the cockpit with smoke and fumes and incapacitating the crew. This could explain the lack of a distress call. It could also explain the unusual flight path. If a struggling pilot was trying to turn back before being overcome, the fire could have slowly destroyed communications and navigation systems. Another possibility is sudden, explosive decompression. Everyone on board could be instantly incapacitated by hypoxia, a lack of oxygen. The plane would then continue flying on autopilot until it ran out of fuel, a scenario sometimes called a ghost flight. However, the mechanical failure theory has problems. A cascading electrical failure is possible, but the sequence seems too precise. The evidence is not conclusive. The Boeing 777 has an excellent safety record. It is designed with multiple redundancies. If one system fails, another backs it up. The silence from the cockpit remains the most troubling and unexplained part. When technology does not provide an answer, we often look to the human element. This has led to intense speculation about pilot involvement. This theory suggests that one of the pilots intentionally diverted the aircraft. The motives for such an act remain unknown. Investigators meticulously examined the lives of the captain and first officer, their personal lives, finances, and psychological state. The captain had a flight simulator at his home. Deleted data showed a plotted flight path into the southern Indian Ocean. Thousands of routes were plotted on the simulator. That alone is not proof of a plan. This line of inquiry is deeply painful for the families of the crew. Without a confession, a note, or any clear evidence, the theory of pilot suicide, or mass murder-suicide, remains pure speculation. It is a dark possibility that hangs over the investigation. Another theory is hijacking, in which one or more individuals seized control of the aircraft by force. The motive remains unclear. No terrorist group claimed responsibility, and no political demands were ever made. It may have been a failed hijacking, a struggle for control leading to a crash. Investigators examined the backgrounds of all 227 passengers. 2 had traveled on stolen passports, but they were determined to be asylum seekers with no links to terrorism. There is no evidence anyone on board had skills to fly a Boeing 777. A more remote theory suggests military interception or an accidental shoot-down. The plane may have entered a sensitive military zone and been brought down, then covered up. Proponents cite the lack of transparency from some governments during the early stages of the search. However, there is no credible evidence to support such a claim. A missile strike would have created a large debris field that would likely have been spotted. Ultimately, all human action theories run into the same problem: a complete lack of proof and a profound lack of motive. After years of searching and billions of dollars spent, we are left with fragments. We have pieces of a wing that washed ashore. We have satellite pings that trace a ghostly arc over an empty ocean. We have theories, each with its own logic and its own flaws. We have detailed maps of the deep, dark seafloor, and the plane is nowhere to be found. And the primary goal was not achieved. The main wreckage and the crucial black boxes within it remain lost. The silence that began on that March night in 2014 continues to this day. For the families of the 239 people on board, the lack of answers is a wound that cannot heal. They live in a state of suspended grief, unable to mourn properly, unable to move on. They continue to call for the search to be resumed. They believe that finding the plane is a sacred duty, a promise that must be kept. It reminds us that our world still holds mysteries. The story of MH370 is one of silence. The silence on the radio, the silent flight south, the empty ocean, and now the unresolved investigation. The facts are few and cold. A plane took off, turned from its path, and flew for 7 hours. Then it was gone. The truth is locked away, thousands of meters below the surface of the sea, in a place we have not yet found. Somewhere beneath those waves lies the answer. Perhaps one day, new technology or a new discovery will bring the truth to light. Perhaps a private search will succeed where the official one did not. Until that day, the disappearance of MH370 will remain one of the greatest aviation mysteries of all time. It is a quiet question, hanging in the air, echoing over the vast expanse of the sea. It is a story without an ending. Where is MH370?